if you want to become a really good songwriter on the guitar, the truth is there are only a few chords that you have to know. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how many chords, which chords specifically, and how they all relate, the music theory behind them, so you know how to string them into meaningful chord progressions that sound great. Now, whether you're a beginner, you're new to the guitar, or you've been playing for a long time, by the end of this, you will know way more than most people care to admit. And you'll be able to just jump to the fun part of actually making your own music. So when it comes to songwriting, you may have heard the old saying, all you need is 3 chords and the truth, which is a quote by the songwriter Harlan Howard in the 1950s to describe country music. Though really you could say that this applies to most styles of music. By truth, he meant lyrics that are honest and tell a real and relatable story. And when he said 3 chords, he was referring to the 1, 4, 5 chords in any given key, since these harmonies are so satisfying and fundamental that entire songs are often composed from the 1, 4, and 5 chords alone. Now, you really should know more than 3 chords, otherwise you start to feel limited pretty fast. So that's not really the number of chords that you should know, but it is true that tons of songs, at least hundreds of great tunes, are based on chords 1, 4, and 5 alone. Like every song of the 12-bar blues, for example, which was the foundation of rock and roll in the 1950s. They all basically include just these 3 chords, whether it's Hound Dog by Elvis or Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and all of the other classics that were written with just these 3 chords. Like I say, we're about to expand beyond just these basic chords, but let's take a little closer look at them because they actually help us figure out the full set of chords that you really need to know. And that's because chords 1, 4, and 5 are generic labels that apply to various chords in all 12 keys. In other words, these Roman numerals describe 3 chords in the key of C, specifically chords C major, F major, and G major. And in the key of D flat, these same labels apply to a group of 3 totally different chords: D flat major, G flat major, and A flat major. And in the key of D, chords 1, 4, and 5 are D major, G major, and A major, and so on. In each separate key, the specific chords are different, but they share the same general labels, the same Roman numerals, because of how chords are built from the underlying scale of a key. For example, in the key of C, the C major scale is formed by playing intervals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which I explain in detail in another video, but the basic idea is that to build chords from this pattern, all you have to do is combine every other note in groups of 3, starting on each scale degree or interval to get these 7 chords in the key of C as our example: C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished, where each chord is labeled with a Roman numeral that corresponds with the scale degree of its root note. In the key of C, C major, Roman numeral 1, starts on scale degree 1, D minor, Roman numeral 2, begins on scale degree 2, and so on down the line, where the capitalized numerals 1, 4, and 5 are major chords, the lowercase numerals 2, 3, and 6 are minor chords, and this little O symbol here means the 7 chord is diminished. So in total, there are 7 chords in this one key in the key of C. And since all 12 keys follow the same pattern, the same chords are formed in each one, where these tables show the structure of chords in each key. But looking at them another way, as guitar chord diagrams, you can see that in total, it's a lot. In fact, when you count them all up, 7 chords times 12 keys, they add up to 84 chords, which is a lot to memorize and learn. Though I'm not saying that's how many chords you need to know, that's not the number either. It's not as many as 84, and it's not as little as 3, it is somewhere in between. And it's a lot less than 84, as it turns out, because really most of these chord diagrams are redundant. The same chords show up in multiple keys, so let's weed out the repeats. Starting with the key of C, we have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. So we'll keep all of these since none of them are repeats yet. Then in the key of G, we have G major, which is already in the key of C, so let's get rid of that. Then A minor, also another repeat from the key of C, so we'll strike that one too. Then B minor, which is new, since the key of C includes a B diminished chord, not a B minor chord, so this one's a keeper. And the next chord in the key of G is C major, already included in the key of C, so delete. Then D major, which is new here, so keep. E minor, a repeat, so delete. And F sharp diminished, new, so we keep it. And going through the chords in every key in the same way, you can see that actually there's a lot of repeated chords where the same harmonies appear in multiple keys. So once we remove them, weeding out all of the redundant chord diagrams, we're left with way less than half of the original 84. So what first looked like a daunting list of chords to memorize is now reduced to only a fraction, to a total of just 36. Basically 12 major chords, one major chord for each key, 12 minor chords, and 12 diminished chords. Together, these 36 chords are what make up the full set of harmonies in every key. It's just that this basic set of chords is repeated and rearranged into different patterns in various keys. But when you get down to it and eliminate the repeats, we're left with only 36 chords, which is much more manageable. But even then, we can condense this all even further, which I'll show you in a second. Though I have to say that if I had known this when I first started, back in the day when I got into guitar, it would have saved me a bunch of time and heartache because I wanted to know all of the options available. So I got a guitar chord dictionary like this and went through the grind of trying to memorize every finger position for hundreds of chords up and down the fretboard. It was painful, frankly, but I felt lucky at the time thinking that this was a fairly concise summary of what I had to learn. And it was nice that I didn't have to ride a bus across town like the Beatles did, according to legend, to learn how to play a B7 chord from some guy they'd heard of who knew this exotic chord. They had to travel far and wide to collect chords. But with a book like this, I didn't have to go on a scavenger hunt since everything had been collected and perfectly organized, or so I thought. But it wasn't true, the idea that it was a perfect collection, for a couple of reasons. First, because most of these chords are redundant, as you've already seen. It's just the same harmonies repeated to fill up a lot of pages and look more impressive to then raise the price I paid for this dictionary, while just giving me busy work to practice on the guitar. And second, even more importantly, because all of the chords shown here are out of context. In other words, all of these diagrams show you how to play the various chords, monkey see, monkey do style, but they don't illustrate why certain chords sound good together, or show how to play various chords in sequence to write good chord progressions, which is what matters in songwriting. And what brings us back to the short list of chords we'd whittled down a minute ago. The 12 major chords, 12 minor chords, and 12 diminished chords. Together, these are the 36 harmonies that make up every key. In reality, all of the extra chords found in books and chord dictionaries are just variations and extensions of this core set of chords. So to begin, they're extraneous and distracting. But once you narrow things down to this smaller group, it's more manageable, it's not so overwhelming, and you can start to see important patterns that show how they're all related to each other, which you can then use. You can use these relationships and patterns to compose chord progressions. So what are these patterns that I'm talking about? Well, instead of listing each type of chord laid out in a row like this, all the major, minor, and diminished chords, instead let's start with the major chords and place them in a loop like this, in a circle of fifths arrangement where the name of each harmony, C major, G major, D major, etc., forms a visible color wheel that highlights the close relationships between all neighboring chords in this ring. And what's really helpful is that if you take any three chords that are adjacent, like C major, F major, and G major, for example, they are the 1, 4, and 5 chords together, with 1 being the middle chord in this group. These are the 3 essential chords that Harlan Howard was talking about when he said that all you need are 3 chords and the truth. In the key of C, with C being the middle chord of this group, C major, F major, and G major are chords 1, 4, and 5, respectively. So if you just move back and forth between these chords alone, you can make some good music. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. And since these same relationships are consistent everywhere in the circle of fifths, you can focus on any 3 chords that are neighbors, and the same 1, 4, 5 pattern is there. In the key of G, G major is 1, C major is 4, and D major is 5. And even way over here, A flat major is 1, D flat major is 4, and E flat major is 5. This pattern, these relationships, are consistent all around the circle. So now all of these major chords are arranged in a way that give you context. So it's not just about memorizing the finger positions in each diagram, but now the positions of these chord charts in relation to each other already guide you in the process of playing chord progressions, which is a good start. But again, after a while, the 12-bar blues and simple 1, 4, 5 progressions progressions can start to sound boring no matter how many keys you play them in. So to expand the options even more, we can add in all of the minor chords, wrapping them in a loop around the inner ring of major chords and aligning each minor chord with its relative major. So A minor is above C major, E minor is above G major, and so on, all the way around the circle of fifths. And by arranging the chords in this way, you can branch out from using only the 1, 4, 5 of any given key to include the minor harmonies of minor 2, minor 3, and minor 6 as well. For example, in the key of C, C major is the major 1 chord, D minor is the minor 2, E minor is the minor 3, F major is the major 4, and G major is the major 5. And A minor, C's relative minor, is the minor 6 chord in the key of C. So now we have a larger palette of chords to play in a given key, and since all of the chords in a key are formed from the same underlying source scale, they sound compatible. Meaning you can play chord progressions that move within a group of neighbors like this, and it will sound good. Like in the classic Pachelbel progression, which has more harmonic depth and variety than the old 12-bar blues. And again, because all 12 keys are symmetrical, following the same patterns, this arrangement of the major 1, 4, and 5 chords in relation to their relative minor chords is consistent in every key, no matter what key you're in. So now we have 24 chords to work with, 12 major and 12 minor, and really that's all you need. That's the answer, the core number of chords to learn to write an almost endless variety of songs. But to round things out, you can also add in that last set of 12 diminished chords to the circle of fifths, which gives you an even bigger pool of options to choose from. Just aligning each diminished chord with its respective major chord in each key. So B diminished is in this outer ring above C major, and F sharp diminished is above G major, etc., all around the circle of fifths. And with this arrangement, you can now play all of the chords in a given key anywhere in the circle. So now you have all of the essential chords on the guitar arranged in a way that lends itself to writing chord progressions. There are, of course, many other chords, augmented chords, seventh chords, extended chords, and all of that, which I talk about in other videos. But when you get right down to it, these are the most fundamental chords. And in this diagram, again, you're not limiting yourself to merely memorizing finger positions, which are important. Knowing how to play each chord is essential. But this illustration goes beyond that because the positioning of each chord also shows you which chords naturally go together in pleasing ways, which ultimately is even more important than just knowing how to play the chords. And if you watch my video on modes in the circle of fifths, which explains where borrowed chords come from, you can expand your songwriting even further, so definitely check that out. But the point here is that this one diagram packs a 1-2 punch, showing you exactly how to play each of these chords on the guitar fretboard, the mechanics of playing, while at the same time also illustrating why the various chords sound good together. The logic or theory of progressions due to their relationships within each key and in the circle of fifths, which allows you to immediately start making your own music, even as you learn to play chords. Granted, the chords in this diagram are the most common fingering, just one set of inversions and the open chords. And in other videos, I explain other chord shapes all across the fretboard so you can play any possible position. But honestly, if I'd had this when I first learned the guitar, or hell, even after years of playing, it would have saved me so much time and frustration. And instead of kind of blindly trying to piece together what chords go well together, I could have just cut to the chase and jumped into the fun part of creation of making my own music, which is what I always wanted to do in the first place. So hopefully this was helpful. In the video notes, there's a link to a PDF with all of the diagrams that we've been looking at here. And in the community, there are hundreds, tons of diagrams that explain music theory further for songwriting. So thank you for watching. Please let the algorithm know if you liked it, and I will see you in the next video.